All right, and this is about the time I discovered the quadrant model as well. So my sophomore year, it's the beginning of sophomore year at college. I discovered the quadrant model. So I'm not gonna get into all the details, but one day I was talking with my grandpa on the phone, and my grandpa told me about a personality type model where there are four types of people. And he told me there's thinking people, emotional people, doers, and dreamers. And and he told me that he thought that I was a dreamer. And I thought about this model, and then later that week, I was thinking, why is there three? Why is there four types of people and not three? And I always prefer the number three. So, and I was just contemplating that, and I was wondering, like, why don't they just have thinking people, emotional people, and doers? Like, why do they have to add a dreamer? And then I was reading the Bible, and I was on the chapter of Jesus crucified. This is the first time I ever read the Bible. I want to mention that growing up, I never once went to church. I only went to Hebrew preschool. That was it. I never did anything religious at all. So, and I never really read the Bible. So the first time I ever read the Bible, I'm on the chapter where Jesus was crucified. And then I write in the Bible a cross, and I wrote in it thinking, emotional, doers, and dreamers, the four types of people. And I thought, okay, well, thinking and emotion, that's a duality. Thoughts affect emotions, emotions influence thoughts. I thought emotions cause us to do things, so that's a trinity. And I thought, and then dreaming, I thought earlier in that week, I went to one of my psychology classes at UCSD, and the professor was saying how when you dream, you have thoughts and emotions and you do things, but you do it in a different domain in the dream world. So I thought, okay, well, dreaming is different from these first three, but it incorporates them, it encompasses them. So I thought, okay, we have a quaternity. We started with the triad, and now we have a tetrad. And there's different, but they're also one. Like they're different versions of one thing. So I thought, okay. And then I started thinking about other examples of this. So I thought about the four forces: strong force, weak force, electromagnetism, and gravity. And I thought, well, the first three are similar, but the fourth one's different. Earlier that week, my other grandpa, not the one that came from Kauai, but my other grandpa, Grandpa C, he gave me a book or a teaching company course on physics. And the professor was talking about how there's those four forces, but the fourth one's different. And there's a questionable fourth force, the quintessent force, dark energy. So I started thinking more examples of this, where there's the three that are similar, but then the fourth that's different. And like right off the bat, I knew. I was like, dude, I discovered the theory of everything, because I'm thinking about the planets and how there's the four, and then there's the four inner ones and the four outer ones. And I'm just thinking about how all this stuff is organized around this pattern. I'm like, dude, it's not a coincidence. This is because this is the foundation of our existence. And I was like, right off the bat, I was like, I discovered the theory of everything. So I started, so I explained to my friend, I explained to other people, and then I ended up calling my mom, and I'm like, Mom, you're not gonna believe it, but I discovered the theory of everything, and I'm hoping that you and Dad are gonna be able to help me get this stuff out. And then my mom was like, well, what is it? And I was like, I can't tell. I don't want. And I told her I don't want to tell you over the phone because, you know, it's best not to say it over the phone, because you never know if someone's gonna hear it. Like, somebody always could be listening in on phone conversations and stuff. Like, I don't want to tell you over the phone. I want to tell you in person, because I want this to be secret just between us. But when you come when you come help me move later this year, I want to explain it to you, and we'll get this stuff big, because I discovered theory of everything. So my mom was like, okay. And then I called my grandpa, and I'm telling my grandpa, like, Grandpa, I discovered the theory of everything. You're not going to believe it. And he wanted me to tell him what it is. But I told him, I'm not going to tell you. Wait till I see you, and then I'll explain it to you. So I ended up visiting my grandpa in Kauai, and then I explained it to my grandpa. But my grandpa didn't understand it. My grandpa was like, what? And because he didn't have that much knowledge on stuff, so he was just like, he thought I was crazy. He admitted later. He told me, he was like, he thought that I had schizophrenia at first. That's what he believed. He thought that I developed schizophrenia. And also at the time, I'm not going to get into details, but I had started to lose my swag flow. And I'm not going to talk about what that is or anything, but I started to lose my swag flow. So things were not going that good in that department. But that was about my sophomore year of college. But I explained to my grandpa about the quadrant model, and he didn't understand it. But he tried to play along like he understood it, but he didn't really understand it. And he thought that I was developing schizophrenia. So he started he put me in the backyard, and he started to have me dig holes and like help him fix stuff in the backyard. And then later he told me the reason why I did that was because he said that he thought that I had a fragile ego, that my ego was becoming fractured. And he thought that by making me work, it would strengthen my ego. It would make me develop competencies and strengthen myself and take me out of my mind and take me out of myself so that I would not devolve into schizophrenia, because that's what he thought was going on when I first showed him the quadrant model. And then, so that's what was going on. And then, so my grandpa also, I think he told my parents. So he told my parents, guys, I think that Ryan's developing schizophrenia. I think that the most important thing is that he starts to work. That's what he told them. And he starts to become independent, because then he's going to strengthen his ego. He's going to develop competencies. He's going to, because right now he has a very fragile and fractured ego. And once that happens, it's going to be strengthened, and he's going to consolidate his sense of self, and he's not going to devolve into schizophrenia. So then my mom and dad are like, okay. So my mom tells me that she wants me to drop out of school and she wants me to start working. But I was like, Mom, are you freaking kidding me? I told you, I discovered the theory of everything. Like, this is not a good idea for me to drop out of school. I'm an academic person. So I'm like, I want you guys to help me get this theory out. But I hadn't showed my mom and dad yet. But my mom is like, no, you're just wasting your time there. You're doing this weird theory of everything. She didn't know what it was at the time. But she's like, you think you discovered theory of everything. We think that you should start working. She was like, we think that you should start. She wanted me to start working as an EMT. She was like, I will get you into school as an EMT. She's like, right now you're just wasting your time in college. You're with your theory of everything that you think you discovered. She was like, you need to start working as an EMT. But I was like, no, Mom, I discovered theory of everything. Trust me. When you see me, I'll explain it to you. Everything's going to be good. Just trust me. So then, then my parents end up coming to visit me to help me pack all my stuff, to get my stuff. This was like during the summer break or something. During the summer break, my parents come to help me bring my stuff back home. So my mom and dad come, and earlier that week, my friend Malcolm, who's like a Salvadorian guy, he asked me if he could borrow the keys to my car. So he said that he needed to borrow it just for a minute, but he said he would give me water if he'd let me borrow it. So I let him borrow my car. But then he took my car and he ended up unplugging it, and he was going to try to steal my car. So my dad got there, and my dad was very frustrated and angry because because my friend Malcolm told me that my car was like in the parking structure, and he told me to just leave it over the brake, and that he would have it fixed for me. But then my dad called AAA, and the AAA guy said, no, this dude's trying to steal the car. So then my dad was very angry, and then it's a long story, but then my dad was like, I'm going to kill this guy. My dad had a gun in his car, and he was like, I'm going to kill him and all this stuff. So then, but I was trying to be all like higher consciousness. So I was like, Dad, come on, like, don't act like that. But then it was like a bad time to do it. But then I was like, Dad, can I explain to you the theory of everything that I discovered, because I discovered this theory of everything. And my dad was like, okay, explain it to me. So then I showed him. I drew out the quadrants. I was like, thinking, emotion, doing, dreaming. I showed him, and I was like, okay, strong force, weak force, electromagnetism, and I started showing him all these examples of the quadrant pattern. And then my dad, like, he didn't let me say much. After like a few sentences of me trying to explain this, he was like, you have schizophrenia. And I was like, Dad, because right before I even said it, I remember I told him, I was like, Dad, trust me, I know this might seem like schizophrenia, like most people who, and I mentioned, I was like, delusions, I wasn't stupid, like I understood the concept. I was like, I know some people, they have delusions of grandeur, they think they discovered theory of everything, and they're really just schizophrenic and just crazy. But I was like, I actually really did discover theory of everything. Now check this out. And I tried to explain it to him, but then right from the very beginning of it, he cut me off. He's like, you have schizophrenia. And then I was like, Dad, come on, no, I don't have schizophrenia. This is for real. And he was like, no, this is a delusion. You did not discover the theory of everything. So that wasn't true. I didn't have any symptoms of schizophrenia. And my grandpa even told my dad later, Ryan doesn't have any symptoms of schizophrenia. My grandpa thought that at first, but then later, my grandpa was talking to me, and he started interacting with me more, and he was like, I thought that he was going to go schizophrenic, but he's not schizophrenic. He's actually normal. He doesn't have any of the symptoms. He doesn't hear voices. He's not really schizophrenic. So then but at this point, my dad thought I had it. So then I went to see my mom, and my dad told my mom, he was like, Marla, Ryan has schizophrenia. He needs to see a doctor. He needs to start taking medicine. And my mom was like, oh my God, I knew it. I knew he had schizophrenia. And then so then I was very upset, and then this is the thing that put me over the edge was then my mom said, this is my, I'm not making this up. Like, it seems like I had to have made this up, but I didn't. She said, this is why your shots started to get messed up in high school. And this is why the problem started to happen, was because in high school you started to become mentally ill. You started developing schizophrenia, and now it's full blown. And now you actually have it. And now you need to start taking medicine. And I was like, Mom, and I started to yell at them. I was yelling at them in my apartment at UCSD. And I was telling them, like, I don't have schizophrenia. And I was screaming at them. And then they ended up leaving, and they left me to pack on my own. Now, I had all my basketball videos there. I was so flustered, I ended up leaving like a whole box of basketball videos, like at least 30 videos. Me playing against, like, playing with South Coast, the best team in the country, playing against teams making 6, 7 3-pointers. Just amazing. Like, if people saw those videos, they would be astonished. And those are some of my best basketball videos that I had. But I didn't have very many to begin with, and I'm not going to get into details about that. But it was because, one, my mom had anxiety issues, and she didn't want to videotape because she didn't want to make mistakes. Now, she never cooked also because she didn't want to make mistakes. She's too anxious. And my dad didn't want, he loved watching me so much that he didn't want a video because he couldn't watch and record at the same time. But regardless, I lost at least 30 videos, 30 games of when I played, and I didn't have many to begin with. So that tragedy happened, and then my parents left, and then not only that, my mom left with my raps. It seems like I'm making, like, it couldn't have gone this bad, but remember, I wrote in all those raps because I was a free writer at the time. My mom left with the raps. Now, I told my mom to save the raps. She ended up throwing them out because she told me they were schizophrenic writings. That's what she thought they were. She didn't realize that they were really good rap music, and I would have been a big rapper. I do think I would have if those weren't thrown away. But so all that tragedy happened in that one day. And to top that off, so now my parents think that I'm schizophrenic. But I stayed in school, and I ended up getting a psychology degree, a bachelor's degree in psychology. So I graduated. But my mom and my dad at this point, they believe that I'm schizophrenic. But at the same time, it's not so bad at this point because I'm still going to school. They think I'm schizophrenic. They know that I'm working on the quadrant model. They think I'm wasting my time. But things are not so terrible at that time. They don't have very much respect for me. They still are looking down upon me. But things have not gone completely downhill at this point. They will after I graduate from college, and I'll get to that.